I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh!
With the flowers in the street boxes in bloom, and a brisk breeze from the north, the walk along the avenue was pleasant enough, even if I felt Bostrick was always about to lurch into me. His feet always threatened not to follow his body, or the street ahead. Destrin was back in the shop muttering over a simple box. Just a box for Murren, the wagon master who carried spices and silver along the north and south road, from Fenard through Kyfros and all the way to Horgland on the South Sea. He would probably still be muttering and coughing when we returned. No single street in Fenard bore sign, but everyone named them the avenue. The Street of Jewelers, the North Road. I had learned the names of many just by listening. But as for the side streets, the alleys, I doubted anyone who hadn't spent a lifetime in Fenard, or a great deal of time loitering, would ever know all the names. The names changed. I overheard Deirdre and Bostrick talking about when the Grocer's Lane had been in the place of old inns. But the avenue was the avenue, the only really straight and perfectly maintained street in Fenard. That might have had something to do with the fact that it ran from the prefect's palace past the market square and straight to the south gate. Because the day was pleasant, and because I wasn't in the mood for doing detail work on the writing desk, not with Destrin in good enough health, temporarily anyway, and because Deirdre was sniffling and sneezing from the early flowers blooming, I had volunteered to wander past the market square to see if the cloth merchants from Horgland had arrived. Bostrick, of course, was happy not to be in the shop, caught between Destrin's complaints and my demands. We're actually taking a walk, honored journeyman. Bostrick, even enough is enough, unless you want to stay with the honored shop owner and feed the fire. Well, feeding the fire would be a great honor. Bostrick, I'd prefer to walk. Sometimes I could see why Brettel had been able to find Bostrick so quickly. His humor wasn't exactly subtle, yet I had the feeling there was more depth there, hidden behind the obvious and respectful disrespect. Clink, clink. I nudged the apprentice, and we stepped toward the shop fronts as the single-post rider trotted toward the palace. Wonder what news he brings. He doesn't look happy. Perhaps the Audarch. He broke off as the soldier in dark leathers of the prefect neared. The soldier, shorter and squatter than either of us, his eyes fixed beyond the street, plunged straight at us as if we did not exist. I could sense an emptiness there, no aura at all, except for a faint white kernel deep within. What? Bostrick looked at me. What was that? I thought I knew, but I only shook my head. He had somewhere to go. He's gonna get there without taking a single turn. No one else on the street. Not the man in blue silks and leather with the long sword, nor the peddler woman with the sack, nor the urchin with the missing tooth and red hair. No one seemed to notice the rigidity of the man's mission as they stepped or scurried aside. Across the street between the two grey stone houses were two boxes of early blooming red flowers flanking a narrow street, where, with an almost furtive look in, the man in the blue silk shirt and dark grey leather vest stepped out of sight. "What street is that?" I asked Bostrick. "What street?" he mumbled in return. "The alley over there, between the flowers. You seem to know all the streets." "It's no proper street," he was flushing. "No proper street?" I teased him, a little glad to have him on the defensive. "Not a proper street." His words were dogged. and he didn't even look in my direction. What do you mean? I glanced toward the red flowers and the narrow alley, whose contents were lost in the shadows. All right, I'll show you, you'll see. Turning suddenly and stretching his long legs into nearly a run, he crossed the avenue so sharply I was hard-pressed to keep up with him. We were both past the flowers before I had much of a chance to look around or to react to fragrances. A dozen or more different odors, roses, night fires, lilies, and others I could not recognize. So many that my senses reeled. Narrow the way was, not much more than half a rod wide, and short, not more than a dozen houses on each side before curving to the right and ending in a wall that seemed to separate the street from the market square. The polished marble stones were spotless and bore no trace of horses or coaches. My eyes strayed up to a balcony not much above my head. There stood a woman, how old I could not say, though she was red-haired and older than I, wearing a thin cotton shift so sheer that I could see every line of her. 2 young agents. I swallowed, not wonder Bostrick had flushed. He didn't look at me, but his steps flagged and he halted. Here, the street of ladies. Street of harlots, young fellow. We know what we are. I didn't see the woman whose hard voice made the statement, since my eyes, turning from the redhead on the balcony, had fallen across a blonde woman wearing nothing but a robe. I think I forgot to breathe. My eyes blurred, and in shaking my head I looked down the way where a brunette, wearing only a filmy skirt, was drawing the blue man in silk inside a doorway. In the open and unglassed window of a house closer than where the brunette had enticed the dandy lounged another semi-clothed woman. Your pleasure here, young fellows. 2 or more, if you wish. That voice came from the left, where my eyes flickered almost despite themselves, alighting on the low balcony opposite the redhead. This one was black-haired. I swallowed again, feeling my trousers suddenly far too tight as I viewed that hair across the impossibly far street. Bostrick, he wasn't as silent as I was, his breath so loud I could penetrate my daze partly. One of the woodcrafters, I think. The identification was so whispery I almost missed it, but the words sent a chill across my neck. Enough of a chill I sent my feelings toward the black-haired wretch. Oh, the heavy and swart woman beneath the illusion radiated not only chaos but a coiled illness deep within, like an ooze-green serpent. My senses shifted to the redhead above. I caught not only her scrawny leanness, but the long knife along one hip, and the vacant smile. What my eyes saw, my senses refuted. My guts twisted, and I had to re-swallow bile and whatever else remained from breakfast. Underfoot, the polished marble turned into rutted and cracked stone and clay, littered with certain items from the interiors of sheep, as well as other items. The odor of flowers was overlaid with other, less desirable odors. Bostrick stood like a statue until I jabbed him in the ribs and took him by the elbow. We both stumbled out into the avenue, though he merely looked dazed. If I looked the way I felt, morning fog would have looked more substantial. See, Bostrick said, see. I said nothing, just forced my feet to carry me toward the market square, breathing deeply and trying to get the odor of rotten roses out of my nostrils and my memory. Shaking my head and squinting, asking myself who had recognized me and why. I shivered and reached out again, this time to Bostrick, recognizing the sender flight of suggestion planted upon him. While it would have been the effort of an instant to snap the thread, despite the ugliness of that lie, I could not. So I infused Bostrick with some additional order and let him shake himself free. Whew. Yes, I added, let's see about that cloth. Cloth? You think I can think about cloth after that? It's a great deal safer. I tried to keep my tone wry. Safer? Bostrick's eyes flashed in my direction. Laris? I knew what he was thinking. Yes, my voice was tired. I do like women. Healthy, young, and unmagicked women. Unmagicked? I ignored his last question as we walked past another half-living guard stationed by the gate to the magic square. The coldness surrounding him was hard to ignore, but I did, letting my eyes search for the bright-colored banner that Deirdre had described. Looking for cloth merchants was easier than speculating on the magic behind the streets of Harlots. Even past the empty fountain, halfway across the paving stones of the square, past the potter stalls, past the split wood baskets from the farms, past the red and gold patterned blankets displayed by a twisted little man, there were no colored banners nor cloth merchants. Bostrick shivered as we passed Mathilde, older but still blonde if plump, and bulging out of unwashed brown trousers and a tattered of open cloth coat. The flowers in her pots were already wilting within from the chaos contained in her blood. No evil there, just honest disorder. For all Bostrick's shivers, I would have betted a dozen Mathildes sooner than any of the ladies in the streets of Harlots. The deeper I looked at Fenard, the less I liked it. But would that have been any true in any place I stayed long enough to really look? I didn't know. What I knew for certain was that cloth merchants hadn't arrived, that I had no intentions of going anywhere near that narrow street again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!